Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma page base. We are right on top of the Amud V'Haki Asa. So yesterday we learned a Brisa, which contained 10 takonos, 10 directives instituted by Yehoshua ben Nun upon entering Eretz Yisrael. The question is, it's not just 10, we seem to have more. Says the Gemara V'Haki Asa Rabbi Abin. He quoted Amar Rabbi Yechanan, who added another one or two. Echad Ilon hanoite l'sadei chaveri. So you have your tree, your fruit tree, at the boundary, at the property line, and it's leaning over to your friend's property. Noite l'toich sadei chaveri. Or another example, similar case, ve'echad ilon hasamach l'meitzar. You have a tree of yours growing right near the boundary. So whether it's leaning over or whether it's just situated right there, so it's drawing some, nutrients. It's sustaining itself somewhat from your neighbor's property. Question is, are you allowed to bring that fruit as bikurim? Is it considered fully yours? Maybe bikurim, yeah. You can take the first growth, the first bikurim, bring it to the Beis HaMikdash and recite the mikra bikurim, the parshiyos, as though it's fully yours. Why? Despite the fact that it's growing somewhat from your neighbor's property, this is one of the takonos shal menasken. Hinchel Yehoshua Yisrael ha'aretz. This was one of the preconditions associated with granting Eretz Yisrael to Klal Yisrael. Right? So that they should be giving, forgiving, generous, and living in harmony. So why is it only 10? We should add this one as well. And Rashi points out, here it's a quote in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, who was an Amoira, he was not a Tana. And the Brisa clearly omits this 11th concept. So it's a kasha on Rabbi Yechanan. Answers the Gemara, you're right, there are various opinions, various counts, various lists with respect to the takonos. Elaman Tana, Asara Tanoin, Shehisna Yehoshua. Who's the one who quoted that list, yesterday's list, which gives us only 10? It was another Amira by the name of Rabbi Shimon Levi. So Rabbi Shimon Levi was an Amira, says Rashi, even though his title is Rebbe, which is typical to a Tana, but we know that he lived in Eretz Yisrael. He was a contemporary of Rabbi Yechanan, and in Eretz Yisrael, even the Amoraim were titled with the term Rebbe. So bottom line, that list was presented not by a Tana, which would pose difficulty upon Rabbi Yechanan's edition. A Tana, an Amora is not meant to dispute a Tana. Rather, the list was presented by an Amora, a contemporary of Rabbi Yechanan. His name was Rabbi Shimon Levi. So that explains it. There are different opinions in terms of how many takonos there were. In fact, Rav Gvia Mibei Kassel, Masnil Behedya. He clearly related it to Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Tanchum, Rabbi Brayis, Amri. So his version of this list was that was Rav Tanchum, was Rav Brayis, Amri, who quoted an elder, a Zaken, Mishum Zaken Echad, who's he? Umanai, Rabbi Shimon Levi. That has this list of Asara Tanoin, Hisna Yehoshua, but of course, others would add to the list. That completes the sugya of Asara Takonos of Yehoshua ben Nun. Now we proceed to another similar sugya. Asara Takonos Tikin Ezra. So Ezra Hanavi, Ezra HaSofer, instituted 10 communal directives for the benefit of all. First of all, he was masaking Shekirin b'mincha b'Shabbos, to read the Torah, Kriyas HaTorah, Shabbos afternoon during mincha, which isn't typical for a mincha tefillah, but on Shabbos we do so. V'kirin b'sheni b'chamishi, likewise we have Kriyas HaTorah on Mondays and Thursdays in the morning. V'danin b'sheni b'chamishi, and likewise he instituted that the Bezdin should set their schedule in a manner where they're in session on Mondays and Thursdays. And one is meant to do laundry on Thursday in honor of Shabbos. You're meant to eat garlic on Erev Shabbos. The Gemara will explain. On a day that the woman is, in any case, getting up to bake her bread, she should endeavor to do it early in the morning so that the bread is ready for the poor man when he comes to collect, for breakfast. Furthermore, he was masaking that a woman should dress herself with this extra garment for tznius, like some sort of like a skirt. And prior to immersing in a mikveh, for Tue purposes, the isha should first comb her hair to ensure there's no knots and no barriers. That the roichlan, the peddlers, selling all types of perfumes, should make their rounds in the towns, in the cities, selling their wares for the women without any objection. Right? They should not be held back by the locals, claiming that they're interfering with their livelihood. They have a right to do so. There's a takana, so that perfume should be plentiful and available for all. And finally, v'tikein tvila lebali karyan, in order to protect the purity and sincerity of Jewish men, he was masaking that we are toivel if we have the keri experience, the mission experience, and we do that before we engage in Talmud Torah. Okay, now we review all 10 items. Number 1, shiur kairim b'mincha b'Shabbos. Why do we do Kriyas HaTorah during Mincha on Shabbos? Mishum yeshvei kronos. Rashi explains, yeshvei chanuyos, those who hang around the street corners, the people that are busy, engaged in selling their wares in the streets, etc. They're preoccupied with business matters throughout the week, and they can't make it. They don't make it to shul on Monday, even on Mondays and Thursdays. So we give them that extra sort of boost, an extra Kriyas HaTorah. On top of Shabbos morning, we add Shabbos afternoon. Second item on the list is V'shayu Kairin B'Sheni U'B'Chamishi. We have Kriyas HaTorah on Mondays and Thursdays. This was instituted by Ezra. Really? Ezra Tikei? V'hamei Karahava Mitakna. It's an old takana, predating Ezra's era, from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the son of Abraisa. V'yelchu shleishes yamim b'midbar v'lo motzu mayim. Our nation traveled for 3 days, non-stop, without water. Those who had a deeper understanding, they expounded the deeper meaning of Rishumos, of the Psukim, says Rashi. Amru, they presented a deeper meaning to this story. They didn't have water. Ein mayim ala Torah. Mayim here is a reference to spiritual waters, which quench our neshama, yearning for connection with Hashem. Shenamar hoikol tzamei l'chul hamayim. Anybody who's thirsty, go drink water. Well, obviously. No, we're speaking about spiritual waters. When a person feels that desire within him, physical desires, really, it's rooted in a spiritual deficiency. His neshama is yearning for completion, for satiation, for connection with his source, with Hashem. And the highest connection is engaging in Liban HaTorah, spiritual waters which satiate our soul. Our neshama becomes full and satisfied by that highest form of connection with Hashem, Torah, which is Hashem's wisdom. So by internalizing that, Chachma, we engage fully our mind, our heart, our body, our soul with Hashem. And what happened was, they were busy traveling without opportunity to sit down and learn. They started feeling thirsty, and a void. Immediately they became weakened. So Nevi'im amongst them got up and instituted, never again. They instituted a practice, a schedule, which ensures that we're never 3 days without Torah. 3 days is a recurring chazaka, never 3 days without Torah. So firstly, we have Kriyas HaTorah b'Shabbos. That ensures that we all engage in Torah somewhat. Sunday we have off. And once again we have Kriyas HaTorah on Monday. And Tuesday, Wednesday we don't. And back to Kriyas HaTorah on Thursday. And Tosfos asks, why in this increment? Why Sunday off, Monday on, Tuesday, Wednesday off. Why not, Tuesday and Thursday? So Tosfos says because the Medrash relates to us that Mondays and Thursdays are special a time of Eis Ratzain, because Moshe Rabbeinu went back up to Shemayim to receive the Luchos, and it was on Thursday, and he came back down with the final Luchos on a Monday. So it's an Eis Ratzain. So therefore, the Ukeveya, those days are special days to engage in learning, etc. So we have Monday, Thursday, Mafsikin Erev Shabbos. We skip Erev Shabbos, and the point is, Kadei Shelo Yalinu Gimel Yom B'Lei Torah. This ensures that we don't go by 3 days without learning. Clearly, this is a takana from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why do we attribute it to Ezra? Way later. Answers the Gemara, there were different phases to this takana. Me'ikara, initially, Tiknu, they were mesakein, minimal. Chad Gavra Tlosa Psuki, one fellow gets up and reads 3 psukim. Inami or, Tlosa Gavri Tlosa Psuki, 3 people, each one a pasuk. Why 3? What's the significance? Kenegad Chayhanem Levim Yisraelim, corresponded to 3 classes amongst Klal Yisrael. Also, who taken Tlosa Gavri Vasar Psuki, but Ezra came and added more. 3 people get 3 aliyahs, each one 3 psukim. 3 psukim, and then we add a 4th. To any one of those aliyahs, Vasor Psuki, for a total of 10. What's the significance of 10? To highlight the importance of Talmud Torah and having a constant presence of Torah learning amongst us. Keneged Asora Batlonim, says Rashi. Read it inside. Asora Batlonim, around 12 lines off the bottom. Asora Batlonim b'nei Adam Ksherim, righteous people, B'teilim Malachtan, off from work. They're fully dedicated to learning Torah, like a koil. La'asek b'tzarchei tzibur, v'lavei koid beis hakneses. They come to the shul, they're always there, they're learning, they're available to create that minyan to keep the shul active and alive. Kadeshi u'metzuyin asor leis hatfilu mesparsim shal tzibur, supported by the tzibur. That's the nucleus of Torah, to create this environment of Torah and tefillah in the village. So that's the point of Asara Psukim. Ezra was masaking to highlight the importance of that constant presence, that active nucleus of Limud Torah in our towns. Okay, further down the list we have V'donin b'sheni b'chamishi. So the Bezdin would officiate on Mondays and Thursdays. What's special about those days? Because that was a populated time. The shchichi, the asur, the mikra b'sivra, everybody's coming from the villages around the city to come to hear the Kriyas HaTorah. So it's a good opportunity to set up shop. Why laundry on Thursday? Pretty obvious. Mishum kavod Shabbos. What's the point of consuming garlic on Erev Shabbos? Mishum oina, because it enables the oina experience. The chsiv, as the pasuk says, asher perya yitam bi'itai. So the point of engaging in physical relations with one's wife is unique if it takes place in its right time. Asher perya yitam bi'itai. What's considered an appropriate time? What's the ideal moment? Rabbi Yehuda v'itema Rav Nachman, some say v'itema Rav Kahana, v'itema some say Rav Yechanan. This pasuk relates to a person who's mishamish mitasa, engages in tashmish me'erev Shabbos to Shabbos on Friday nights. So therefore, in order to encourage and facilitate a proper mitzvahs oina, Ezra HaSofer was masakin. We should have shum, garlic, which, as we're going to see in a minute, enhances this experience. Tanarabban, chamisha dvarim never b'shum. There are 5 qualities associated with garlic. Masbia, it satiates a person. Mashkin, it warms him. Matzal panim, it enhances his countenance, his facial radiance. Marbe hazera, and increases our zera, and that explains the connection to mitzvah so'ina. V'hoirei kinim shebibnei mi'ayim, it eliminates the worms within one's intestines. Some add that it's machnes ava moitzes akina. Rashi says because it's mesameach salev, it puts a person into a good frame of mind, a good mood. It's mesameach a person. Generally, when a person is happy, he's happy with himself, then he's happy with others as well. So it generates ava to people and eliminates jealousy. Okay, furthermore on the list of takonis, she gets up early to bake her bread. And the answer is why? To have the bread available for the aniyim that come around. The point of adding this garment on the isha mishum tzniusa to create another layer of tznius. So lastly, second to last on the list, we have the Isha who's going to clean her hair, ensure there's no chatzitza before tefillah. Well, that's a basic halacha minat Torah. Why do we need a special deiraisa, the tani bar brisa, that one cannot be tevel with a chatzitza? Pasuk says, "Barachatz es b'sorei b'mayim." We should rinse himself, immerse his basar in water. Obviously, we're going to go into the mikveh, you're going to get wet. Shaloi tehi davar chaytzeis b'b'sorei l'mayim. The point of adding the word basara in the pasuk is to teach us that his actual flesh has to make direct contact with the water without any chatzitzos, without any barriers. The word es basari, is teaching you es hatafel basari. This includes the tefillah b'mikvah and all the associated guidelines, including lack of chatzitza, relates to even something which is subordinate to one's flesh. What is that? What's secondary to the basar? Mind you, seir. So not only the chatzitza, the dine chatzitza apply to the basar, but one must ensure that even his hair, which is sort of secondary to his guf, should be free of any chatzitzas. So we all know that from the psukim, from the brisa. Why do we need a new special takana? The answer is Amri, the iraisa le'yuni. You're right. When a Torah, one is meant to examine, to inspect that he's free of chatzitzas. Still more mikta, perhaps his hair got knotted. Inami mos, or perhaps there's something unclean, something there's some dirt. Inami mos midi mishum chatzitza, to ensure he's free of chatzitza. That's it. But v'asa iu, Ezra came and added another layer of security, tikin chafifa. He was masaking that the isha should do chafifa, which Rashi says means b'masrik, combing with a comb, l'archaka de musa, to really fully ensure, no chatzitza is present. Okay, furthermore, so the peddlers are meant to make their rounds, and there are nobody can object to their presence in the local towns. The reason is because they were promoting, they were selling the perfumes, and the point is Kadesh lo yizganu abaleim. Ezra Sefer took great care to ensure that throughout the generations the women will have what to wear and to dress up before their husbands, so that they don't lose favor in their husband's eyes. So you see, on one side of the equation, he promoted proper relations and goodwill between the couple. On the other hand, the men should ensure proper purity. So it's like that delicate balance. A balkari should be toivel before he goes and engages with divrei Torah. Asks the Gemara once again, that's a concept espoused in the Torah. Right? What happens? He must be toivel. So what came through with this takana? Answers the Gemara, yeah, you're right. Before a person engages in eating truma or karbanos, he's got to clean himself, he's got to purify himself in a mikveh. But Ezra came along and added another point. Tiken, he was masakin, that one must be toivel to purify himself afilu divrei Torah before he engages with Talmud Torah. And Tosfos brings that halacha l'maisa, we don't paskin like that nowadays. It's not a requirement, although it's brought down. The Rambam speaks about it. That of course, a person who seeks a higher level of purity should, of course, maintain this practice as well. Continues the Gemara. So we have the 10 takanos of Yeshua ben Nun, we have the 10 takanos of Ezra. Here comes another list of 10. Asara Dvarim, there are 10 items that are Nemru b'Yerushalayim, which apply to Yerushalayim exclusively. 10 practices that were kept in Yerushalayim. Number 1, Ein habayis cholotba. Typically, when one sells a home in a Arei Chaimena, in a walled city, throughout Eretz Yisrael, so once that first year in which you have the opportunity to redeem the house, to take it back, once that passes, once that deadline is over, the house is now granted to the buyer permanently. But that doesn't apply to Yerushalayim. There's no deadline. You can always come back and refund the house. That's number 1. A person, a victim of murder, is found near Yerushalayim. Typically, the city nearby brings a special egla rufa not in Yerushalayim. If the residents worship idols, there's no concept of the city being punished as an ir nedachas. The house, negoyim, the nigei batim, if it were to be found in Yerushalayim, does not present a tumah concern. Destroys. When they build houses, they must ensure there are no zizin, no beams, or destroys porches out on the street, which can create a tumah hazard. They don't have garbage dumps in Yerushalayim, again because of the concern of presence of tumah. They don't establish furnaces in Yerushalayim. Nor do they have gardens and orchards. Chutz, there was one exception to this rule. Meginois v'rodin. Rashi explains, v'rodin typically means, a vered is typically a reference to a rose, but here it's a reference to kipas hayardin, one of the ingredients of the keteris brought in the Beis Hamikdash. It's something which typically grows near the Jordan River. The reason why it was called vered, because in its shape it looks like a sort of a mini rose. So they needed this ginais v'rodin in order to grow this plant for the keteris. Shehaisa ba mimois neviim rishayin, which was there since the early days of the neviim. Furthermore, we don't raise chickens in Yerushalayim, nor do we allow the deceased person to stay overnight in Yerushalayim because of the kedusha of Yerushalayim. So these are the 10 items. Now we go back and explain. Number 1, ein habayis cholet ba. So even after the year is up, the house can still be refunded and redeemed by the owner. The chsiv, the pasuk, in describing the halachas of the bayis that was sold, says like this: Bava Kamma bayis asher lo ychayim latzmisus l'koyin oisel deroisav. So after the year is up, the house now is granted permanently to the purchaser, the one who acquired the home. Because savar, and we hold loy nischalkel Yerushalayim l'shvatim. In contrast to the rest of Eretz Yisrael, which was divided and allocated to the shvatim, each one got his own personal portion. Yerushalayim did not undergo that process. It remains sort of an international, fully accessible city, belonging to Klal Yisrael as a collective entity. So although people would live there in their own homes, the bias you own, but not the territory beneath it, not the actual karka, the actual land, is internationally owned. It's a national entity, and therefore the pasuk l'koina oisav, the one who acquired it, keeps it. It's his forever. That doesn't apply to a person dwelling in Yerushalayim. It's not really his personal possession. There's no egla rufa. The pasuk says a similar idea. So we find the victim on the adama on the land which Hashem gave you as an inheritance, and that only relates to those portions which were allocated to the Shvatim, which became their personal possession, their personal estate. As opposed to Yerushalayim, which did not have that status. Yerushalayim was not allocated to the Shvatim. Furthermore, for the same reason, because the pasuk uses the word arecha, it's your personal city belonging to you, to your shevet, and that doesn't apply to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is chak l'shvatim, and that pasuk of course relates to ir nedachas. And finally, we have another item on this track. There's no concept of tumas negoim there. It's going to be in your place of inheritance. Yerushalayim, once again for the same reason. Okay. We don't have these overhangs on the streets of Yerushalayim. You know why? To preserve the tahara, because there were many passerby. The Oile Regalim, people would come and go, and Rashi explains, if there's any tumah beneath a porch, anybody walking beneath it, could be multitudes of people walking around, you're going to create a tremendous riboy increase of tumah. Another reason is because there's so many people running around during the regular time. We don't want any things poking out the street for safety concerns. Okay, nor do we establish dumps in Yerushalayim because of these rodents that are found here, and many of them die in the dumps, and you're going to have all kinds of dead, shvatzim which present a tumah concern. Nor do we establish furnaces. Mishum kutra. So Rashi explains furnaces here were meant to be used to burn misrefois sid, where they burn lime, lekaderas, to produce pots and dishes. We don't want that in Yerushalayim Mishum kutra for concern of the smoke coming out of these big commercial furnaces, which blacken the walls of Yerushalayim, and some add it harms the appearance of the Beis HaMikdash as well. Nor do we have these gardens because of the unpleasant odor which these places can generate. Rashi explains because when they do weeding and they throw the weeds around, that can decompose. Likewise, the fertilizer used, so we keep it out of Yerushalayim. Likewise, you don't raise hens and chickens for a similar reason of the dumps. We're concerned about preserving the tahara of the karbanos. And typically, Rashi says, Tarnagoyim are known to make their rounds and pick and pull and take all kinds of not impure stuff and bring it around. Finally, we don't allow a deceased person to stay overnight in Yerushalayim. We bury him that day before the night's up. And the reason for this is Gemara. Rashi says Gemara means Masar Sibiyadein, Vein Tam Ladavar. It's a tradition, we don't really have a reason for it. But on the side, actually, they bring Ein Hatam Bezoyar Nasa. In Parshas Nasa, the Zoyar explains it based on the secrets of Torah. So actually, the Zohar does give the reason. He says because the nighttime is a time where where Hashem sort of enable and empower the impure powers, the spirits and all that, to sort of gain more footing, to be more dominant. Time of Hester, of darkness. So that's their sort of their territory, right? That's when they operate. And the Zohar explains that a person who's left without a neshama is just a guf. The guf in itself is so lofty because it represents Hashem's Hashem's form, right? So the koiches hara are looking, they're searching to find. This is like perfect fodder for them, finding a guf without a neshama who is sort of detached from the source of holiness, of purity of the neshama. So they sort of pounce on that guf and try to sort of connect to it and draw from it. So this combination of nighttime with a guf, just lying in a vacuum, is something which attracts the keiches hatumah. And therefore, specifically in Yerushalayim, which was a place of kedusha, of tahara, we need to preserve the status of Yerushalayim, and we try to avoid this type of enhanced tumah presence. Interesting that Bizman Hazeh nowadays we don't necessarily keep all these halachas, and Mefarshim explain because they're not really relevant nowadays for many. We don't really have the Beis HaMikdash, etc. We're in Gullus, the Goyim are sort of running the show. So the takanas were not necessarily meant for nowadays, but interestingly, we do keep, even nowadays, you go to Yerushalayim, they're very careful not to do halanas hameis. They quickly bury the mace, they don't allow the mace to stay overnight. And the Mefarshim explain because this is related to the inherent kedusha, holiness of Yerushalayim, which of course is very much there even nowadays. Okay, continues the Gemara. Ein megadlan chazirim b'chol makom. This is back to the Mishnah. We don't raise chazirim anywhere, wherever you are. No chazirim. Tana Rabban, Kishetzara. What led to this takana? Kishetzara beis chashmonai zeh. So there was a very unfortunate episode, a chapter within our history where the descendants of the Chashmonai family were both vying for control, for kingship. So they were actually two brothers, and they were sieging each other. So there was one brother on the outside of Yerushalayim laying siege on the other brother inside. Shetzaru beis chashmonai ze'alzeh. Hurkanus, that was one of the brothers. Mibifnim, he had he set up shop inside Yerushalayim. But Aristoblus, his brother Aristoblus, was outside, Bachutz, and he laid siege on Yerushalayim. Rashi says they were brothers. Achim hayu umerivan advar melucha, fighting about the melucha. Okay. So they were stuck inside without any access. The Beis HaMikdash was still standing, and they had no access to animals for karbanos, for the carbon tamid, which was required daily. So they had this arrangement. So even though they were fighting pretty violently, but that much they gave them, they allowed them to have karbanos. So every day, every morning, they would send out lower a container filled with coins over the wall, and the ones outside would exchange the coins for karbanos, for animals. But there was one fellow there, an older man, who wasn't a very astute fellow. He was an expert in Greek, language, culture, and he was going to use that. He was on the inside, and he was trying to side with the fellows outside. So he gave them advice. He tells them, using this sort of Morse code, you should know one thing. As long as the ones inside Yerushalayim are going to be engaged in avodah and karbanos, that's going to protect them. They're not going to be given over to your hand. You have no chance. Basically, stop the deliveries and you'll win the war. So what happened was, the next day, Shilshalim Diranim Bekupa. So unbeknownst to them, they figured they'll do their daily exchange. They sent out the coins. And what happened? The ones outside were brazen enough to send up a chazir. Who was being pulled up from the guys inside were pulling it up, and as soon as the chazir reached halfway up the wall, it had such a terrible effect on Eretz Yisrael. The tumah not tziparna b'chayma. So as the way as is expected of a chazir was being dragged, he sort of entrenches his, he gets his nails, tacked on the ground. In this case, he tacked it onto grabbed onto the chayma of Yerushalayim, and his daz Eretz Yisrael, and the whole Eretz Yisrael shook and trembled. Arba meis parsa, Arba meis par, 400 by 400 parsas, huge land of Eretz Yisrael. It just tremored, it quaked because of this terrible episode. When the Chacham saw how this came about, because of the Chachma Yevonis that this Zakin was using to make this terrible arrangement. So they declared Amru Arur Ha'ish Shigad Chazirim. So first of all, cursed is a person who raises Chazirim, which was a catalyst for this misfortune. Varura Adam, likewise, cursed is a person Shilamed is Bnei Chachma Yevonis, who promotes, who teaches his kids this Greek culture. And in fact, relating to that dark period, we learned a Mishnah in Maseches Menachos. Typically, the grain for the carbon ha'omer was picked from right outside Yerushalayim and brought while it was still moist and fresh, and the material for the shtei halechem as well, the wheat for the two breads on Shavuos, was typically delivered from a local farm. But this time around, the areas around Yerushalayim were scorched, were burnt because of this siege, and they had to go find these materials from far, far away. Masa, there was a story, the Omer was brought Migagas Hatzrif from this distant town called Gagas Hatzrif, and the material for the Shtei Halechem was brought from likewise a distant area, Mibikas Ein Soichar, because of this terrible war. Interesting, Tosfos says that actually the Arur Ha'ishi Gada Chazirim just mentioned happened way later than the other way around. He says that the whole story with the Malchus Beis Hashmonai took place before, many years before the halacha found in our Mishnah. So basically, this says it was a two-phased process. Firstly, there was the story with the Beis Hashmonai, which resulted in the double Arur for the Chazirim and for the Yivanis. And at that point, it says, if a person insists he wants to raise Chazirim or whatever, he's not really going against a takana. Arur, okay, fine, he gets an Arur. He's not going to get bracha, but later on, the Chachamim made a gzer. They established no raising chazirim, etc. So that second phase is reflected in our Mishnah, which says that was the final takana of the Chachamim, that one is meant to keep away from chazirim. Okay, bottom line is, we expounded on the 10 takanas of Yeshua ben Nun upon entering Eretz Yisrael to encourage, harmonious living amongst Klal Yisrael. We have the 10 takanas of Ezra relating to, once again, various communal, benefits, whether it's tzedakah, whether it's niyas, whether it's shalom bayis. Then we had the 10 takanas, some things which are unique to Yerushalayim. A lot of it relates to the fact that Yerushalayim is a communal asset belonging to Klal Yisrael. Meher b'ibana, meher b'imenu, amen.